Hello chess friends and welcome to your side of chess channel and welcome to the TCEC season 18 Premier Division. So in the round 20 we had the clash, I think, in this Premier Division. It's Stockfish versus Stoofvlees. Stoofvlees was in the lead so far in this TCEC season 18, so it was, I think, a surprise, but it played really great in the beginning. It won many games because LCZero and Stockfish played too many draws and were a little bit stuck behind Stockfish. They couldn't catch up with this very nice engine, but in round 20 Stockfish had finally the opportunity to take the lead in the tournament, and here you'll see really sort of a rage against the machine, because here Stockfish showed again its great attacking skills. And by the way, I like also this band, the Rage Against the Machine, so that's why the title is really the Rage Against the Machine. It was really sort of a rage against this engine Stoofvlees that was in the lead basically through the whole season 18. So let's check out the game. We have here e4 by Stockfish, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and after bishop to c4 we have the Italian game, and which is a little bit surprise for me, because Stockfish plays really these dynamic openings, and basically we don't see many dynamics in the Italian games. Basically the Italian game is a positional game, but here again Stockfish will provide some dynamics in the game, some attacking possibilities. That's why really Stockfish is really the best attacker of this top in this TCEC season 18. So here after bishop to e7 we have the Hungarian defense, which is a little bit passive, but basically it's really a firm structure in front of the king. We want to play on fast development with d6, knight to f6. Most of the times you see the Gioco piano with bishop to c5, but here we have the Hungarian variation with bishop to e7, d3, and now knight to f6, castling. After d6, of course, black liberates here also this light square diagonal. We have the move c3, and this is a very important positional move. It's common also in the common Ruy Lopez game. You see many times this move c3. This c3 is the idea of white to prevent, of course, black to jump on d4, because there is this positional threat to play bishop to g4 and then knight to d4. But also it leaves white the opportunity to push in the center with the move d4, and also it has also a third function, because in some occasions you see that black will try to annoy your bishop a little bit with knight to f5, so you would have sort of an escape plan with bishop to b5, then bishop to a4. If the bishop gets challenged by some a6 or b5 moves, then after bishop to a4 we could hide again with our bishop to c2 and continue with our idea to push the pawn on d4. So this is a very, very important move now. I'm showing a little bit also this opening preparation, because I think you play many times this Italian game from white's or from black's perspective. So c3 so far a good positional move. So we have now the move bishop to g4, and when you get pinned in chess, there are several ways how to escape from the spin. Most of the times you can kick away the bishop with h3, maybe g4, but it could be risky if you try to expand too much here in front of your king, because then your king has also some spaces in front of him that could be attacked, so you would leave many weaknesses in front of the king. So far Stockfish plays the move h3, and after bishop to h5 there is this problem for black now, because this bishop is always covered by the knight here on f6. So there are, in some occasions, not immediately, but there are some occasions in which you could try maybe knight to e5, for instance, if this knight goes somewhere, knight to e5, and then maybe queen takes h5 if the queen, for instance, comes to d7. So these are these tactical threats, not immediately, but you could always search for these tactical ideas if your opponent plays something like queen to d7 and go somewhere with this knight. Maybe, I'm not sure where, but if this knight leaves the protection of this bishop on h5, then you could have maybe some tactics with knight to e5. So here bishop to b3, very nice move. It seems a little bit strange because you have played with the same piece twice in the opening, but it's not a problem. Again, this move comes with a double function, again to play bishop to c2 with the idea to play the move d4, and also bishop to a4 is a serious threat, because then we would create this very nice pin with the move bishop to a4, and why hasn't Stockfish played immediately the move bishop to b5? Because if you play the move bishop to b5, then you get kicked away with a6 and b5. So this leaves Stockfish a much better flexibility to play the move bishop to a4. Then the bishop isn't vulnerable to pawn attacks here on the queen side. So bishop to b3 perfectly fine. So queen to d7, that's what I meant. Now you see the queen is an object of this attack, knight takes e5. So far it's not possible, but it is a tactical possibility sometimes, and that's why we have bishop to g5. Now comes this tactical idea. We want to take bishop takes f6 and maybe to play something like knight takes e5, attacking the queen and taking the bishop on h5. So that's why h6, here bishop takes f6, and that's my point here. If you try bishop takes f6, then you get this move knight takes e5. So if you take the queen, we could take knight takes d7. You could maybe take the bishop on b3, but now we have knight takes the bishop on f6 with check. After g takes f6, we have a takes b3. So that's why in the game after bishop takes f6, Stoofvlees is forced to play g takes f6. So now this idea to play knight takes e5 doesn't work, because we can simply take. After knight takes d7, we could simply take, and this move knight to f6 comes with a check, but you didn't grab a piece, you grabbed the pawn, and that's why bishop takes f6, and after a takes b3, black is simply better because black has an extra piece. So that's why it's not possible here after the move bishop to f6, g takes f6, and now this tactics doesn't work. So but there is this problem for Stoofvlees, it's this double pawn structure, and if we evaluate now a little bit the position immediately, you see that both sides have, of course, this very powerful bishops. On the other hand, this knight is of course developed. This knight on b1 is still not, so we could play something like knight to d2, but even the main idea here now for white is somehow to get out of the pin and maybe occupy this weak f5 square. That's basically the main weakness in black's position. Also this d5 square. So these are targets which we should basically attack because they're really unprotected. If we cement something, if we could just imagine a very nice outpost on d5 on f5, this could be really, really dangerous. In the game, we have bishop to a4. So that was Stockfish point. You see, if black tries now maybe something like a6 b5, still you have weakened the pawn structure even on the queen side further, and the king is still in the center, so there's not a good way where to castle. If you castle king side, the pawn structure is already weakened here. You see this is not a healthy pawn structure, so if you castle on the king side, you could have some troubles. Again, if you try a6 b5, again you have to expand it too far in front of your king. If you could just imagine the position if black castles here on the queen side, and the a6 b5 is again not such a powerful idea. So rook to g8, played by Stoofvlees, trying to get some kind of an attack on the g file. The threat, the immediate threat, is of course queen takes h3, so that's why king to h1, and we have now f5. Knight from b to d2, and we have now bishop to g5. The main idea by Stoofvlees is to take bishop takes d2, then you cannot take, of course, with the knight. You have to take with the queen because of the spin by the bishop, and then maybe to play something like bishop takes f3, you would be forced to play g takes f3, and after potential f4, your h3 pawn would be very, very weak. So that's why knight to c4 is a forced move here by Stockfish, and we have now queenside castling by Stoofvlees, which was basically a mistake. Because you're vulnerable, as I said, to the spin. Knight to a5 is a serious threat. But what to do here from black's perspective? After the move knight to c4, you could maybe try here f takes e4. After d takes e4, it seems so, but it would be really a mistake that black can play here the move f5. I tried to analyze this particular line, why Stoofvlees didn't go in this particular line with the move f5, liberating really this files, these diagonals. There is a problem about this move, and you should never push pawns in front of your king when you haven't castled so far. It's really a main principle in chess. So after the move f5, here you have here the opportunity to play a very nice counterattack with the move queen to b3. So this idea to play immediately knight takes e5 doesn't work. As I said, we have sometimes this tactics. We could maybe try it sometimes out. After knight takes e5, It's not possible. Of course, the bishop is hanging and also the queen is attacked. But bishop takes d1. Of course, we take the queen. After knight takes d7, we can take this bishop. That's the main problem, and you cannot get out with this knight somewhere. So basically, you lost 2 pieces, and it would be game over. So that's why White would be forced in this particular position after this potential f5 to play the move queen to b3. And it seems now that black can play bishop takes f3. I really try to see this line, why Stoofvlees didn't play aggressively here. After bishop takes f3, we have now the possibility to play on this very, very dangerous discovered attack, knight takes e5, discoverly attacking the rook. So black would be forced here to play bishop takes g2 in order to open here really the g file. After king takes g2, queen to g8, g7 seems really dangerous, because now we're threatening to open the g file and your knight is hanging. But king to h1 is really a tricky move, solves really the positional problems. You cannot take, of course, with the knight. You would be forced to take with the pawn after d takes e5. It seems that black has a good position, has an extra piece, but this is the main idea here. Queen to b7, 2 pieces are attacked. You would be forced to play something like rook to d8, and now after rook to d1, still this knight is pinned, of course, and we can simply take it afterwards, and it's game over, I think, here for black. Black would be forced to trade off the rooks, then we can play check, get the queen somehow into the game, and the king is simply too vulnerable to white's attacks here in the center. So that's why after this move knight to c4, as I said, the f takes e4 and followed with f5 wasn't played in the game. I just wanted to see what would happen if black would have played that. But here after the move knight to c4, Stoofvlees castled. Then we have now knight to a5, creating a simple threat basically in chess, this spinning idea. Now this knight is really, really under fire. We have f takes e4, we have d takes e4, and now bishop to f4. Bishop takes c6, and after b takes c6, queen to d3. So finally Stockfish gets out of the spin. Bishop takes f3 after queen takes f3 doesn't bring you so much, because we have still a powerful knight. Basically this bishop is useless, and still you have these weaknesses in your position. Still there are some threats, queen to d3, queen to a6, so it's really a bad position. But even if you try bishop takes f3 here, there is also this common idea to play queen to a6. But in long terms, even if you try to somehow protect first and then take bishop takes f3, it's really not a good idea, because this bishop, although it has a good activity, for instance, of course we are not playing now on this checkmate threat, but if you violate this power of the bishop, it's basically aiming into nothing. That's not how a bishop should be placed, and as I said, black has simply too many weaknesses in order to go into this particular line. So after the move queen to d3, we have queen to e6, liberating a square for the king, and we have now finally rook to g1. So now if you try this move queen to a6, it seems like a dangerous move, and it seems so that black is lost. But now king to d7 after queen to c6, okay, you would have a little bit your fun after queen to c7, rook to d7, knight to c6 is maybe a serious threat. But now king to f6, simply escaping with the king is possible here, and you would be forced to retreat with the queen, queen to a5. But now comes the stunner, queen takes h3, and you have to take after g takes h3, bishop takes f3. It's a simple checkmate. So you see, Stoofvlees has prepared here some dangerous tactics with the move queen to e6. So queen to a6 wasn't played in the game. Here Stockfish played rook to g1, has to bring another defender into the game. Very nice defensive move. Still, again, I'm pointing out bishop takes f3 is not so powerful. As I said, queen takes f3, that was the position that I wanted to show you this idea. Still, I think white is better here. The c6 pawn is hanging. Still, we can include again the queen somehow into the attack. And again, I simply don't like this bishop, which is basically out of game, although it has a good activity. So we could play here even g4, simply blocking out the position. Maybe here b4, queenside expansion, and similar ideas. So too many possibilities, I think, here for white. So in the game d5 played by Stoofvlees, so not this idea bishop takes f3. Here Stoofvlees is trying to open the position, but now comes this move, knight to h4, getting out of the range of the bishop, because this bishop has of course a powerful activity here. And now after d takes e4, we have now this move queen to a6, the check, and now the d file is open, so that's why here Stockfish played knight to c6. And it seems so that maybe Stoofvlees can take with queen takes c6, but there is this problem after rook to d1, bishop takes d1 and rook to d1. It seems that black can escape with king to e7, and now if you take the queen to c6, it's checkmate here, because black will simply take the rook on d1. But there is this problem, you have this intermediate check, knight to f5, and you're basically forcing black to go somehow into a check. So wherever you go, maybe king to e8, then this rook takes d8 comes with a check, and now we can take the queen and it would be game over. So that's why this intermediate check, knight to f5, is very important. So Stockfish of course calculated all of that very well, so that's why here after the move knight to c2, knight takes c6, here Stoofvlees escaped with the king to e8. It's really a weird game in which Stoofvlees is hiding the queen on a really weird square here on e8, and now Stockfish played simply queen to b5 with some discovered attack possibilities on the king. So here the rook to d2, and now queen to b8 attacking the king, and you have to go away, and now here Stockfish simply takes the rook on g8. So it's of course a better position now here for white. The good thing is that we have also brought our queen into the defense, so that's why queen takes c6 was played, and now knight to f5. If you try rook to f2, which wasn't played in the game, but then you get knight to g7 with some queen to e8 check possibilities. Black is basically running here into checkmate if you take this pawn on f2. So that's why here after the move knight to f5, we have queen to g6, and now again knight to g7 with the same idea, queen to e8. Here bishop to e2 was played, and now queen to e8, we have king to d6, and now c4. Very nice move here by Stockfish. If you take, for instance, with the bishop this pawn, then this rook can come into the game, and again you're attacked on the d file. If you take here the knight on g7, then we have a very nice move c5, basically forcing black's king to go on our side of the board. After king takes c5, we would have rook to c1. The king has only can only go here to b4. If you go b6, then you get queen to c6, and you're running into checkmate. So after king to b4, a3, you have maybe king to b3, but now queen to b8, a check again. After king to a2, we have rook to a1. It's game over. So this would be, I think, a very nice king hunt. So that's why after the move c4, very nice move, tricky move here by Stockfish. We have e3. Here Stoofvlees is trying to counterplay somehow, but now c5. Again, we want to decoy the king, come here to our side of the board. We're gonna checkmate you, so that's why here Stoofvlees didn't take, played king to d5, and here we are having now finally the possibility to create a dangerous check. Probably Stoofvlees maybe saw some escape routes here through the square e4, but it's really a lost position. After queen to d7, we have king to e4, but now f3. Very nice move. Here black is forced to give up some material, and now rook to f1. We have only one square. It's king to e2, and now queen to b5, we have queen to d3. Here Stockfish, I think, can even take immediately the queen, and it's again game over, so it's not a problem. But here Stockfish tried queen to b5, queen to d3, and now queen to b7 with the same idea here to play queen to f3 checkmate. So that's why queen to c4 had to be played, and now rook to e1, king to d3, and again rook to g2. Basically this rook is the key defender in front of black's king, so that's why Stockfish is trying to trade it off. If you try rook takes g2, here it's not a problem. We have queen to g2. If you try to escape rook to d1, you can maybe play king to c5, but now queen to b7 is the serious threat. You would be forced maybe to play something like e2 in order to counterattack, but now comes the stunner b4. you'd have to take with the queen, but now rook to d5, that's the main tactical threat here. And after king to c4, we have here queen to c6, you have to cover with the queen, and queen takes c5, it's again game over. So that's why after this move, rook to g2, this was really sort of forced tactical sequence. That's why Stoofvlees didn't go here. We played here simply e4, and now we have b3 attacking the queen, queen to c3, and now this knight comes very actively into the game. We want to, of course, cover some more squares, so that's why you have to include all of your attackers into the game. Queen to c5, we have queen to a6, king to c2, and now queen to f1, trying, of course, to play rook to c1, so that's why here the queen gets out of the range. Queen takes f5, but now we have again a new check. Queen to c4, king to b2, and now queen to c1. You have only one square. King to a2, and now very nice move, rook to d2. If you take here the rook, it's again checkmate. Simply queen to c2, you have only one square, and now after rook to a1, king to b4, and now queen to c4, so this is also checkmate. So whatever you do, it's game over. Here in the game, after rook takes d2, Stoofvlees tried king to b3, and now queen to b2, king to a4, and now rook to a1, it's checkmate. So this was really a rage against the machine by Stockfish. Really kicked ass here, really kicking some ass against Stoofvlees, really showed who's the boss in the TCEC season 18. Now Stockfish is 1.5 points even in front of LCZero, which is really incredible. But again, it will be, I think, the same super final like in the previous seasons between LCZero and Stockfish. If you want to see more games like this, you can check out also my best chess games played by computers. Here's the link, and you can also check out my best chess games of all time if you want to see humans battling their own best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.